Hello, everyone, and here we have a new story. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community, write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail, broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published once every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello friends, my story happened a year ago. I've been married for 7 years. Eventually I found out that my wife was cheating on me. My wife cheated on me with several men. Maybe there were a lot more of them. I don't know the whole truth anymore. I proposed and got married when I was 21. My wife was 23 years old. I met my wife at a 𝐂𝐤𝐿 marathon sports event. It struck me that my wife had no children. There are girls in my town that I knew. They already had children, some even had 2. She told me she doesn't want children yet. My wife wanted to get on her feet and take place in this life. Before starting a family, my wife worked for @Support. I worked as a truck driver. Before I got my license, my dad taught me how to drive a truck. I left for work at 6 in the morning and returned by 6 in the evening. My wife was returning from work at 7 p.m. She had a 5-day schedule. Sometimes she went to work on Saturday. It was convenient because we were at home at about the same time. My wife and I liked to watch different TV shows in the evenings. After a year of our relationship, we stopped watching TV together. My wife started working overtime, and she often stayed late at work. At least, that's what my wife told me. When one of us was delayed, we immediately sent each other text messages or made phone calls. In general, I have always trusted my wife. Sometimes my wife was annoyed when she came home. I thought it was okay, it was all because of her overtime. I also noticed that my wife started talking a lot on the phone. We often had scandals. Because my wife and I agreed on this when we spent time together. We are not distracted by the mobile phone, but it started to annoy me. I asked who calls her so often. The wife replied that the boss called and it was work. Related, I believed my wife and let this situation go. Then I noticed that $500 was withdrawn from my bank account a couple of times. I asked my wife, why does she need money? The wife replied that she needed to help a friend. He had a very serious problem. Then I asked why she didn't consult me. The wife replied that the friend needed money very quickly. She said she would give me the money back and that I shouldn't worry about it. This situation made me wonder why my wife didn't tell me about this. The money was returned to my account, but it didn't bother me much. It's been 3 weeks since I left work early. I immediately went to change the oil in my pickup truck. When I tried to pay, my card was disconnected. I thought, what the fuck? My account has 0 balance. I had to use a backup credit card to pay for an oil change. I immediately called my wife and asked what was going on. What is she doing with our money? My wife started yelling at me that her friend needed the money again and he would return it. After a while, my wife transferred the money to our account. When she came home, my wife behaved quite strangely. I asked if she was okay. She replied that it was a difficult day at work. I let this situation go. We went about our usual business. We watched the TV show, had dinner, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up early and went to my father before work. I told my father that my wife was withdrawing money from our bank account, that she was sending money to a friend I'd never met. My father was at a loss. He asked me, "What are you talking about anyway?" Then I repeated to my father that my wife had given money to some guy. At the same time, she doesn't consult me at all, but the money was returned back to the bank account twice. To which my father replied, "Oh, there's something wrong here. Why would your wife give money to another man without even consulting you? I know that you trust your wife and let her make her own decisions, but there's no point hiding it from you." My father said that we need to sort out this situation. After talking with my father, I quickly went to my wife for work. When I entered the building, I asked a young guy where I could find my wife, but the guy replied that my wife wasn't at work today. After that, he called the manager, who confirmed that my wife had a day off today. I started thinking, why didn't my wife warn me that she had a day off today? Bad thoughts began to accumulate in my head. My wife usually works on Tuesdays. What the hell is going on? I'm going home fast. There's no one at home. I call at work and warn that I will not be able to go on shift today for family reason. At 7 p.m., my wife returns in her work uniform. She comes in and asks me, how was my working day? I answer that everything is fine. My wife asked me if we could talk. I said, of course, and approached my wife. She started apologizing for not telling me about the money she gave to a friend. I replied that I understood everything and let go of this situation. A little later, someone called my wife. She runs out into the yard and starts talking on the phone. I can tell by the tone of her voice that something is wrong here. I couldn't hear who she was talking to, so I decided to go outside and ask what's going on. As soon as I go outside, my wife immediately stopped talking on the phone. I asked, who is it? The wife replied that it was a friend. I looked at her and asked, what do you mean by a friend? A person to whom you lend money. My wife gets angry and leaves, saying she doesn't want to talk to me anymore. I couldn't figure out what was going on lately. Why does the wife behave like this? After that, he called his father and asked what time he would be free from work tomorrow. I wanted to come and talk to my father in person. The next day, I went to my father's house. I talked to my father and told him what was going on with my wife. Dad said there could be anything here, but the main thing is to trust your intuition when it comes to such questions. So, after talking to my dad, my intuition told me that I had to get to the bottom of it. I returned home and sat down at the computer. I downloaded the phone bill and matched the phone numbers. I noticed 2 unfamiliar numbers. I wrote down these numbers. 2 more weeks passed, but nothing special happened. My wife and I have started spending less time together. Sometimes she comes home from work very late. I did some digging on the internet to find out how I can track my wife so that she doesn't find out about it. I came across an article from 𝐖𝐢𝐼𝐼. In this article, I read that you can use an AirTag. I decided to take advantage of this so as not to spend money on a detective. I called my father and shared my plan. My father told me not to use my car because my wife knows what my car looks like. I replied that I didn't have time to rent a car. So I put on my old clothes and parked in the distance. The night my wife fell asleep, I went and attached an AirTag to the glove compartment of my wife's car. The next day, I took an early leave from work to find out where my wife's car is. My wife's car wasn't near work. The car was parked outside some guy's house. This guy was a black elderly man. I pulled out my phone just in time to take a picture of my wife kissing this guy. After that, my wife went to another house, which was at the end of the street. It was another guy, and he was black too. When she went up to the guy and kissed him, he immediately grabbed my wife's ass. This guy had a firearm sticking out of his pants. I sat in the car and waited for them to come inside. I sent the photos to my dad. The father replied, "Take all your things and come to me. I'll meet you near the house." When I was driving home, my father was already waiting for me. I took as many things as I could and left it. As soon as I got to my father's house, I immediately went online. I opened another bank account and transferred some money from all credit cards to it, from the cards that my wife has access to. Unfortunately, we got married in California. It wasn't profitable for me at all. But there are a couple of points in my favor. I call my lawyer and say that I've been married for 7 years. We have no children and no common property. At 10 o'clock in the evening, my wife calls me and asks where I am. I didn't pick up the phone, and she left me a voice message. After that, she started sending me a lot of messages, but I didn't call her back. I just ignored her. It's been another 3 weeks since we had a court hearing scheduled. My wife comes to the hearing with one of the black guys. They were holding hands. The hearing didn't go the way my wife wanted. If I had been married to this woman for at least 2 more years, she would have cleaned me out completely. But my wife didn't get anything but her car. After the hearing, I stayed with my father. So far, I haven't been able to find a place for myself. I immediately changed my mobile phone number so that my ex-wife can't contact me. This chapter in my life is closed. About 2 months after the divorce, I'm going to my father. My ex-wife is sitting on the steps in front of my father's house. She came up to me and asked if we could talk. I told her we didn't have anything to talk about. She started begging me. I said, "Okay, say whatever you want to say and leave." She started crying and begging for forgiveness. I was very angry and shocked. How did she even have the decency to come to me? I shouted at her to get out, turned around and left. Then I found out that my ex-wife was fired from her job. One of those black guys my wife had sex with was arrested because he didn't pay alimony to one of his girlfriends. I haven't heard from my ex-wife anymore. It's been a little over a year since this happened in my life. Don't get married in California, friends. That's all I can say. Before we get to the author's advice, I want you to write your comment on this. I'm very interested in your opinion. I will read and respond to your every comment. Channel author's tips. It seems to me that this girl don't care about husband. She took her husband's money and easily gave it to another man. What shocked me the most was that you didn't react to it in any way, my friend. I would take her by the ass after the first time and put her under a microscope. Any girl in her right mind would never give money from a shared bank account without warning her husband. I do not know how you let your wife get away with it. I would call you a horned deer. But with your father's help, you will be rehabilitated. You did a great job fixing the situation. I wish you to come to your senses. I believe that everything will get better in your life. By the way, this girl also surprised me very much. She appeared in court with one of her lovers. Most likely, she wanted to hurt you. Now I will tell you the most interesting. I've already reread a lot of stories. I came to the conclusion that every girl who leaves then very much regrets her act. All these girls come back and ask for forgiveness. Do you know why, friends? If you know, write a comment to discuss this topic. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.